Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to Talk of the Town. My name's Karen Bukes, and I'm the host tonight. Did you know this is our 350th show? I really can't believe it. It's been wonderful, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And don't be shy when you see us out in the street shopping or whatever. Say hello. We like that. Ken and I want to give a shout out now to Ernie's Restaurant. Fabulous place to eat. Now this is a shout out we go often, and I especially want to say hello to Tanya, wonderful waitress, and she makes us smile all the time, and we'll be seeing her in a little while. Okay, let's welcome some of our underwriters. Stoll's Cafe in Manamet, love going. Shouldn't have said that. Evolution Salon, Brewster PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster, Attorney Trifletti and Coster on Long Pond Road, and our very first wonderful underwriter, David and Kevin Gallerani, Cape Auto Body and Service, Samoset Street and Sandwich Streets right here in Plymouth. Talk of the Town has a great line of guests this evening. We even have some photos. I'll be interviewing many guests tonight. The theme is about the amazing achievements the Community Preservation Committee recommended to town meeting. Thankfully, through many wise decisions by the CPC and town meeting members, they were able to secure many positive results for our Plymouth community. The two guests that are sitting with me are well-known and deeply respected. I can say without a doubt, CPC has brought forth a much better quality of life for us right here in Plymouth, and I thank them for it. Please welcome from the Community Preservation Committee, Bill Cohane, and who I call the father of the CPC, Paul Withington. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Karen.
My pleasure. Now, we'll be speaking on a lot of subjects tonight, and we have other guests. I'll tell you ahead of time. Donna Curtin is here and Randy Parker, and they'll be coming in to speak on what they've been able to accomplish with the CPC. But I'd like to start with Paul, if that's okay with you, Bill. Paul, I so admire and respect you. There are no words. I love you, man.
Don't tell your husband.
Yeah, I know.
I feel the same toward you.
Oh, I admire you so much. And I'd like you to give us a little history now of how it started, what you did, how you brought this forward.
I would like to do that.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to point out that the CPC actually came into Plymouth through the Open Space Committee, on which I sat with many other, Joan Bartlett, Lois Post, Matt Hoagland, Betsy Hall, Loring Tripp, and one particularly fine person, Tom Belcher, who had a government job, but he was the one that came up with the 1.5% that exists in town today. I just mentioned them because this was at a very early stage, because it wasn't until we went to town meeting and we felt, and at that time you could bring in the CPC into a town two methods, one by going out and collecting signatures or putting it on a town-wide ballot. And we felt if you were going to sell the thing to the town, the best way was the town-wide ballot, which meant more work, actually. But anyway, we had one member on that committee who was Tom Belcher. He worked for the government, and he later felt that it was a conflict of interest. He had to leave, but he was the one that came up with the 1.5%. We felt that we should keep everything cheap, cheap, cheap if we were going to sell it. And he came up with a 1.5%, and he figured if we had that, we would raise $1 million at the town level. And I don't care whether you call it a betterment tax or stealing money out of the taxpayer's pocket. It's money out of the taxpayer's pocket. But at that time, the state would match dollar for dollar. The 1.5% would bring in $1 million at the local level, and the state would match it. At that same time, if we were a year late, Duxbury got into it before we did. They went for 3%. And one of the selling points, I remember, I went before the selectmen and pointed out that the state got the money by putting a surcharge on any activity at the Registry of Deeds. In other words, it was still coming out of the people's pockets, but individual. But at that time, Plymouth not being in the program, but people were paying that at the Registry of Deeds. And the first year, Plymouth residents put $500,000 into the Registry of Deeds surcharge. The same time as Duxbury, who got in before us, took $500,000 out. And I said to the selectmen, we just spent just what the Duxbury people wanted, and it all came from the town of Plymouth. A little tweak, but trying to explain why
We're shown
we ought
in
to get into
Duxbury,
it.
by the way.
But anyway,
It's all right, Paul.
we went to town meeting and said that we wished to put it on the ballot so everybody in the town could voice their opinions at the voting booth. We did do that, but what happened was after the town voted, yes, the town meeting voted to put it on the ballot. After that meeting, I went home and the phone rang, and it was Jeanette Janes,
I love her.
who kind of attacked me.
Why?
And when she ended up, she said, well, I'm quite enthusiastic about this. And I said, well, why don't you bring your enthusiasm to the next meeting we have?
Yeah.
And I hung up, and the next call was Bill Cohan.
Yes.
And he didn't attack me as much, but he was interested.
Yes.
And as you know, Bill brought a
best.
capability
Yeah.
that nobody can match. And
best.
it made me realize how old I was getting.
Oh, stop.
I just tell one quick, brief story. When I went before the selectmen, I ended by saying to the selectmen, I have a bus waiting outside, and we're going to, I picked a gambling hall. And I said, it's going to cost you $40, because at that time, $39 was what was proposed with the 1.5% surcharge. And I said, it's going to cost you $40, but I guarantee when you come back, you're going to have $1 million in your pocket.
Yes.
Which was
Oh, that was a great line,
ooh
Paul.
la la.
Yeah.
But I remember David Rushforth, doctor, he was
Sure.
a selectman. He came over, he said, that's what sold me.
Yes. Good man.
Anyway, going on beyond that, or going further back, there was a gentleman by the name of Duran from Hudson, I believe, and he was the one that started at the state level. I think he was a state rep. He wanted to preserve land, and he worked for it for years and years. And what basically came about was people who wanted to preserve historic sites came in and said, we would go with you if you included us in the package.
Great.
And then the next one were affordable housing, which really didn't fit the idea of preservation, but nevertheless, it brought him sufficient votes So this was voted by the state that the towns could decide, and that's how it came up.
I think it's the best bang for your buck.
Well, you have to lay most of that on this guy. He's done a superb job.
Yes.
I keep telling him he talks too much, and he goes to town meeting, and he gets unanimous vote, and I keep going over, and I
Yeah.
said, this is getting boring. You're always
Yeah.
winning.
How can we say no to Bill?
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell you one further
Please.
anecdote. Ellie Beth was the town manager, and I bet her $1, and she kept saying, "You're going to lose, you know." And I said, "You want to bet?" And I said, "I'll bet you $1." Well, when we won, the next day I went in and I looked at her, and she said, "You want your $1?" And I said, "No, I want you to take it and frame it and write across it, 'Yippee, I lost.'"
Yippee is right.
I don't know if she ever
Yeah.
did that.
Paul, your contribution has been magnificent to this town. You have made it so that this town will basically look the same for years to come. We have many things to look forward to because of you, because of your vision. And you were smart enough to do something that would benefit this town. Listen to that poor man. He was doing it for years, and it took a group of people to bring it forward, and I thank you for it, Paul.
That's very kind of you. Many people worked on it.
Yes.
My belief is representative town meeting is absolutely the best form of government you can come up with. I think we're all disappointed with the performance at the state and federal level.
Yeah.
You have very few people who feel our form of government is no good. It's the best you can get. And I like the town. I like the idea of our form of government, and that's the only reason I got into it. And I enjoyed it all the way.
Yeah, all the way, Paul. It was a great ride, and you're not done yet. So,
Well,
no, please. And so I'm going to go to Bill now. And Bill, I would like you to talk about housing, open space, and the historical end.
Yeah.
Paul,
I can.
thank you.
But
Yes, I'm gonna-
before Paul leaves, I want to say this. I
Yeah.
don't think that the committee over the last 12 years could have accomplished what it did without your advice. Often I would
Yeah.
get a little rambunctious, and you'd pick up the phone, or I'd call you, and you'd tell me how to handle the situation. And that advice has meant a great deal to me and to the committee. And
we've created a great friendship, and you know that.
so I thank you for that advice.
Good.
Your advice has been very helpful.
Yeah, Kenny's going to help you, Paul.
But
Okay.
It's interesting when Paul talks about the formation of the Community Preservation Act. It was the second, I believe it was a state senator, Duran, who was working on a state level trying to get the Community Preservation Act adopted. And they were having a great deal of difficulty because it was just focused on open space. And he began a relationship with a developer who was working in Boston, down at Dorchester Lower Mills, the old chocolate baker factory.
Know well.
And the chocolate baker factory there had been out of business. It had been in tough shape. It was slated for demolition. This developer came forward and said, we can make this work. We could do a mixed housing scenario where we're doing affordable and market rate housing in the complex. We could get historical communities, entities to support the facade restoration to the building. We could gather some of the open space entities to see if they could contribute money to help buy land along the Neponset River to open up for boating and walking trails.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that whole project was the catalyst where you saw housing historical, and open space money working together
Yeah.
to achieve the preservation that took place at that location. And when Duran saw this example, they said, this is a way to get this bill passed. It had sat in the House and the Senate for 15 years, languishing, and this was the thing that passed it in the year 2000. And like Paul said, when we were reading about it, one day I was somewhere at an event in Plymouth, and someone came by with a clipboard looking for signatures to get it on the ballot.
Right.
And it was Joan Bartlett. And I said,
I love her.
it was the first time I met her. And I said, how many signatures do you need? And she says, 700. And I said, when do you need them by? She says, Monday.
Monday.
So we went to the dump.
Well, we know how to collect.
Yeah, we know how to collect signatures. So I went to
Yeah.
the dump and I got the clipboards out, and we began
Yeah.
collecting signatures over a 2-day period of time. We got close to 720 or 50.
Yeah.
But we didn't
That
have
was a
enough.
lot of hard
That was a
work.
lot of hard, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't get the signatures. So Paul said we need to go back to town meeting.
Yeah.
So we went back to town meeting, and it passed that way. But the reason why I wanted to touch on the historical component,
Okay.
it's a large component. It's a component that has been very beneficial to the town of Plymouth.
Absolutely, it has.
And as we prepare for 2020, the committee's paid a lot of attention to this issue. And the Baker Chocolate Factory component is unique to the state. But when the opportunity for the town to address the Symes House in Plymouth, we saw an opportunity to infuse the housing, historical, and open space.
Who was the first person who came to you?
It was Randy Parker.
Randy
Parker at town meeting. I think that
Yeah.
over the years, the Community Preservation Act may have a committee, it may have an application process, but the body that understands it and implements it is town meeting. And someone who understands town meeting saw an opportunity, and that's when we decided to look at options.
Well, I got a phone call, and we only had 2 days to rally, and it was through Randy, and then you. And we got it done right there on town meeting floor. And that's what town meeting's all about. That's the best part of town meeting.
Right.
I love it. But continue, please.
But that was basically what we were confronted by. That,
Yeah.
and I think one of the most interesting aspects of the Community Preservation Act is not as much as the actual accomplishments that it has, but the change of mind in the mental setting of people when it comes to preservation and how it works.
Yeah.
In town meeting, going from a curious body with this act, this statute, to a supportive and an understanding tells me something different, that we might not have enough resources to preserve all the open space or build all the diversity in housing that we need or protect all the historical landmarks, but what we have a chance is change people's mind. And I think the greatest attribute of the Community Preservation Act is to act as an educational tool to give the town the ability to be proactive when it comes to these issues, when it comes to housing, historical, and open
Well,
space.
it's our town, and we love it, so we want to keep it in a certain way. I mean, we love progress. That's okay, but we have a lot of very important buildings here.
Right.
And land that is precious.
Yeah, and then when you look at the three components of the statute, we have a requirement to set aside 10% for housing, historical, and open space each year. There's a
Yes,
remaining.
go through that process.
That is a requirement of the statute, that
Yes.
what monies we do collect here locally are matched by the state,
Yes.
and we're required to pay 10% in for housing, 10% for open space, 10% for historical. The remaining, we can set aside about 5% for administrative costs to implement the community preservation.
It's needed.
Appraisals to look
Yeah.
at land values, other safety-related issues and legal issues and due diligence for town meeting. We never really, I don't think we've ever asked for the full 5%.
No,
I
you
think it's
haven't.
4% we ask for each year, and the remaining balance to the administrative account goes back into the fund. And the committee has tried to run a cost-efficient effort where really it's the 9-member committee that takes its minutes, works on its agenda,
Yes.
prepares for town meeting, trying to keep costs down so that we have the resources to make sure that we have adequate access to land acquisitions, proper signage for different properties, and that we have the proper legal counsel and we do our due diligence for town meeting on the articles. But the remaining balance of 70% can be utilized for housing, historical, and open space.
Right.
And this is collected here in Plymouth through a surcharge on your property tax at 1.5%, as Paul indicated. that collection is then matched by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. When we passed the Community Preservation Act in 2002, in May 11th, we were at 100% match. So whatever we raised here, 100% in 2002, 3, 4, 5,
That was wonderful.
and 6.
Yeah.
And 7, it changed. It started to go down as the real estate market went down, because
Yeah.
the revenue that the state matches us with comes through real estate transactions.
Yes.
So when that slowed down, the match slowed down. Right now we're at about 58% match.
Still a good
It's
deal.
still a good deal, but what we've noticed over the years, that it's important that you partnership with other entities to find the leverage at town meeting. If we're going to town meeting with a historical project or housing and open space, we try to connect with those groups to help us achieve that goal by financially partnering with other entities.
And one of those wonderful acquisitions that the CPC thought that would be wonderful for the town was through Randy coming to you and suggesting that we have to save this house for Manomet, for Plymouth. And why, Randy, explain your end of it, how you came to this, how you decided that this was imperative.
I guess it really began 20 years ago when we wrote the Manomet Village Task Force Master Plan, and there was a vision in it that we needed some green space and should preserve our historical identity. And going through my advisory and finance book, there was an article to convey the property taken for taxes, and it fit the bill perfectly from the master plan. So I approached steering committee members, and I approached Bill. Town meeting declined the conveyance to the Housing Authority, gave us a chance to set up a nonprofit. We did that, and then the CPC went back with us to the following town meeting and gave us a head start with $1.5 million grant, which we've utilized for the exterior and other things, and we're about to commence the interior.
Well, I say through your guidance, Randy, it's been wonderful, and of course the CPC and Bill and.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that was proposed by the newly formed organization to bring this project to fruition was the adaptive reuse of the building, and that historical preservation works when you find an economic model that works. That we as a community are investing these monies in the building is repaired, but it is a wood structure, and it's going to need additional repairing in the future. So we were impressed by the business plan they had, the economic model they had, in the incorporation of utilizing housing money, historical money, and open space money. Right. The building sits in a village location. It's an area of commerce and residential use. There's a lawn, and it was a residential home, and we wanted to see a residential component to it. Exactly.
You know, the area, you've seen the photos, Bill.
Right.
And Randy, the sand went all the way down to White Horse Beach. There wasn't a tree.
Yeah. Nothing but pastures at the time that the Symes house was constructed by Joseph Symes. 79 acres all the way from Point Road to the bluff and the beach. It was phenomenal, and I think what we're finding is that it's an effort that is entirely unique with the mixed use that we have. We get engaged in a lot of discussions and investigations and trying to figure things out and trying to compare our situation with other situations. What are some analogies that have happened? What are some experiences other entities have had? And the bottom line is that there is no benchmark. It's unique to have the affordable housing on the third floor, the vitality of business on the second, and then functions and a community facility on the first floor with an acre of land for events,
Parties
tree
outdoors,
lightings.
yes.
It's just a wonderful opportunity. We've got a long ways to go, but we're getting there.
What do you think, Bill? I mean, you watched it
Yeah, well,
grow.
I think that was the thing that I thought was most important. That coming up with a strategy of bringing in an income to maintain the building, and utilizing the three components, recognizing the three components have a historical context to the building in the village.
Right.
So recognizing that we could bring in an income to maintain what we invested in was important to the committee, and it was important to town meeting. And I think that that was the thing that was the most impressive with their application. But obviously, one of the things that stood out from my experience, and later Donna Curtin will join us, and she can contest to this, that it's unique to find a situation like this where residents, lay people, saw an opportunity and decided to preserve it. Usually, the applications are coming from pretty established organizations historically, and this was just
Grassroots.
It was neighbors, residents, business people.
Well, see, that's
town meeting.
why we love Randy, because he is grassroots and he understands
Right.
the Plymouth Manomet. He understands everything. He eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And I am so grateful that you are the president of the Symes House.
Thank you.
And what else would you like to say in regard? Oh, we have photos, don't we?
We do. We should see it. We have photos. Sims House 1, I think the
I know.
photo's
I
called.
keep saying Symes, and it's Sims. It's a
Sims.
Well,
habit.
I think it depends to whom you are speaking. You know.
It's like I still say Jordan Hospital.
Well,
I will
and
not stop
This
saying.
first photo
I
is
do
the
too.
before. It's the photo of the building before the renovations. This is what the town took as tax title, and it was slated to be demolished.
Yeah.
This is actually after it was really cleaned up. When we first looked at it, you couldn't see
Right.
the mansion for the trees.
Right.
And it's all been cut back. The locust is gone. It's been mowed. A fire had taken out most of the south side of the building, the porch to the right, soffits on the top. And that's been dealt with by a very good contractor. Has done a great job
They
for
did
us.
a wonderful job. Next
Good
photo, please.
This is the phase 1, the facade restoration, roof and siding all restored.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, you're looking at about $766,000 thereabouts
I believe it.
of
The
material
windows, too,
and labor.
The windows, a number of the windows are original or were made to.
It's really fantastic. We just had our first wedding event there.
Yes.
That happened to be my son
Yes.
and his high school sweetheart. And we had a
Wonderful.
big tent and a little tent. And the comment from the bride's mother was it was elegant but comfortable.
Did you have it catered, or is there a kitchen there?
There's no kitchen yet. There's nothing on the first floor.
You should have a
to that
kitchen.
end. Well, we're
All right.
working towards it.
Do we have more photos?
I think there's another. Right now the lawn is being utilized for events. The tree
Yeah.
lighting takes place. We have Charlie Brown has been growing.
Yes.
It looks good at that location. There are literally hundreds of people coming to the tree lighting. You've
I
had
went.
yard sales
Yeah.
and plant sales.
Plant
and,
sales are very successful.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, you drive by, and one of the things, one day I volunteered helping, people cross the street or traffic.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Someone was walking by the house, and
Thank you, Walter.
there's actually one more. There we go.
Oh,
There's
there.
the interior. That's the interior of the house as it is now. The next slide will show you some of the detail. There it is. The thing that really was interesting was that the condition of the detail of the interior of the home, very little had been done to this house over a period of time. Usually when you find a house of this architecture and style, you find it in Boston, and it has been greatly renovated over the
Yes.
years and turned into condos and
Painted over,
Painted
yeah.
over. And this one kind of just sat there as a summer residence for many years and owned by different people. At one point it was owned by the Priscilla Beach Theater
Dr. Trask.
Dr. Trask, where he housed some of the actresses and actors and actresses there. So over the years, it was a camp, and it really did not
Thank you, Walter.
experience a lot of wear and tear. That was the impressive thing on the building. But to date, the efforts to continue to fundraise and find the resources to finish a project are underway. And the lawn, when I was there one day and people were crossing and utilizing the lawn and for an event, I heard someone say, "Oh, where are you down? You're down for the summer?" And the person said, "Yes." And like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in years." And that's what happens to a community when you have a green and you come out. It's not bumping into somebody at a shopping center, but bumping into somebody at an event that everybody goes to on your green.
We drove by the other day, and there was a fellow taking a picture of a woman and a dog on the steps. The door was open. There's a bunch of cars there. I don't know. It looked like a photo shoot. I don't know what that was about, but the door was open. So I imagine that the director had to open it or something.
Certainly. That was the Plymouth Digital Photographers Club.
Oh, they've been very good to you.
They have been so good to us.
Yes.
And they love the facility. And we provided models for this shoot.
Yeah.
The little dog.
I love the little dog.
And my daughter.
Yeah.
And her friend Josh, and a small child, one of our relatives now by the name of Leland.
Was the dog yours?
That's my wife's little dog.
Well, your dog came to the house and peed on my lamp, but that's okay.
No, that's also my wife's little dog.
That was so funny. Sorry, Bill.
But that's okay. Yeah, so that club has been particularly good to us.
Yeah.
And they continue to do shoots. I think Mary Ellen indicated that couple hours, $315. And we're just, it's very helpful. Every little bit helps, and it spreads the word. We're really looking forward to getting the first floor complete so we can entertain events, weddings, family reunions, celebrations of life. There's a lot that goes on, and the space to do that is at a premium. So it'll feel good when we get there.
Especially in Manamet. I mean, we could always use an extra meeting space
well,
too.
even more so than that. At least for the foundation to have the community facility operating and generating much needed income to get to the second and third floors.
Well, that's what town meeting voted for, Randy, was to have the most income come in there so you can be sustainable. And I don't think town meeting members will like it if they, you have to have business or money's coming in.
Well, I think it's important that you always have a strategy to generate a revenue to take care of a complex like this. But I think when the Community Preservation Committee was recommending this to town meeting, they were thinking about the wider impact that giving Manamet the definition that it's looking for, and being inspired by the residents who came out and said this is something that we can do, and that can-do attitude that was coming out of Manamet, the CPC wanted to support and take to town meeting.
And we thank you for it. It breathed new life into Manamet.
Well, it's an effort made by a lot of people.
Yes.
And that effort is greatly appreciated. And the Science House Foundation has been most fortunate in acquiring St. Catherine's Chapel Park on White Horse Road.
How is that going?
That's going very well. It came with an endowment that has been invested. The theory being that the interest on the endowment can take care of the park along with volunteer help. So the philosophy is to draw all of Manamet closer together.
The Manamet master plan calls for parks, recreation,
open space.
Yep.
Historical preservation, sure.
So you did. You brought that forward too.
The most valuable thing about the master plans that we have in the town of Plymouth is that they establish goals and objectives and state a vision. And had the master plan not stated that we needed a green in the vicinity of Point Road and Strand Ave,
Right.
had it not stated that we needed to preserve our historical facilities, then one would not have had that to rely upon to remember 20 years later and go to town meeting and say, it's right here. This is what we want for this village center. And every village has the opportunity to do that. And so I think that we've just revised the master plan for Manomet, and I think people will find it very useful.
Yes.
I hope so.
I think it's important to look back and see how town meeting has responded to the applications and recommendations that were made. And they were always about, when it came to historical, we saw a unique opportunity, not only preserving historical buildings, but also coming up with an adaptive reuse that was going to benefit the community in a multitude of levels.
Yes.
When you look at downtown Plymouth and what has been accomplished between acquiring an old library in North Street and making it the Center for the Arts, which is
Beautiful.
quite successful, saving a turn-of-the-century building library in an additional Linden house that is attached. Later on, we were able to save an 1886 Methodist church in downtown Plymouth. It's now the new Spire Theater. These are things that people come to Plymouth and experience. You go to a show, you go to an art exhibit, you go out to dinner, you spend time. They attract people that spend the weekend, and these are forms of economic development of our downtown. Both of them were strategically looked at because of their relationship to Court Street and Water Street. We feel it's important that if we can connect the two,
Key components.
all the studies have said that that's something that you want to do. Finally, it was in 2010 we acquired the old 1820 courthouse, and
Yes.
obviously it's under renovations for our new town hall. But as the committee made recommendations to town meeting, it was always looking for, it's not about, if we're going to save a building, how can this building come back and benefit the
Right.
community, and how can it sustain itself?
Sustain itself, that's right.
And-
Randy, I thank you so much for coming on, but I want to say I'd like to have you on at a later date to discuss, whatever you'd like to speak about.
That would be fantastic. My sister will be here in October.
Yes.
She'll be touching base with you. She's finished her book, Wicked Moon.
Yeah, Wicked Moon.
It's in the process of being published.
Oh, good.
She'd love to come visit with us.
Yes.
All of the profits from that go to the foundation. The last thing I'd like to do is thank Bill Cohan
Yes.
for all that he has done for the town of Plymouth and the village of Manomet. And note that he is now one of 11 sitting directors on the foundation, appointed by the selectmen, and he does
It's
a
in
great
good
job.
hands.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Randy. All right, we're going to switch out now, and we're going to bring someone that I love to hear speak because she's such a good speaker.
I wanted to touch on those things because this is what Dr. Curtin has taught me over the years, that historical preservation is a challenge. The resources that are out there to preserve, and we've always tried to build a relationship with town meeting to send recommendations that showed that we were going to preserve a building, but this building was going to go to work and provide a benefit. So that was one of the things that Donna had taught me over the years.
And we now have Donna Curtin here with us, Antiquarian Society.
Very good.
And you do many other things for the town too, but I love hearing you speak because you're so great at it.
Well, yes, when we have passion for what we believe in, of course, history is something
Yes.
that I am not a Plymouthian, not born and bred here, but Plymouth was always one of the places that I would want to come to, and one of the greatest attractions was all that wonderful history that it had to offer. And I think that's true of many people that
Yes.
end up living here or just come by to visit, that this is one of the key things about our community. And it has been something that in past generations was neglected.
Yes.
So community preservation, to me, this has been the key
It has been
to
the key.
really enhancing and creating this network, just like with the open space has created networks of beautiful parkland and wonderful
Woodland.
environmental
Yes.
woodland and riverways, and that we can visit and walk and enjoy. And now we have the same thing being created with the projects that Bill and the CPC committee
Yes.
have been funding to create that kind of a network of historical buildings and projects that not only cover the geographic expanse of the town, but the chronology of the town as well.
Yes, well, see, that's it, the chronology of the town, which is so important. Tell us about you, Donna. Tell everyone, this goes to 18 towns, what you do. This is Donna Curtin, very respected young lady in our town, and we just love you. So
Well,
tell
thank
us
you.
what you do, Donna.
I'm in a very tough business, I'll tell you that. The historic house business is an extremely challenging field.
Oh.
Preservation is something, and Bill was talking about this a little bit earlier, that part of what the Community Preservation Act did was educate people in all of our communities here in the South Shore a little bit more about the importance of preserving these wonderful layers of the past that we have in our region. Not every place in the country has the depth of history that we have. And my job as the director of the Antiquarian Society is to try to make these historic properties that our organization has viable so that they will be here for this generation, the next generation, the next 100 years to come. Our organization will be celebrating its 100th anniversary in 1919. And we started out very much like the Sims Foundation as a grassroots effort, and it was all women, Karen.
All
It was
women.
all women back then. That they were the ones that said, you know what?
Yeah, well, they
Plymouth
had the
needs to-"
vision.
They did. I have
Yes.
to give credit
Yes.
to the women of Plymouth in the early 20th century.
Yeah.
They were the ones that decided that it was important to start saving some of these historic buildings.
Absolutely.
But we've had the benefit now of being around for some decades and hopefully, developing a little bit more of a base of support. And I understand completely when something like the Spire, the a greater performing arts center, is starting out afresh with a new building, and what it takes to make that work, not just preserve the building, but make
yeoman.
it functional.
Yes.
It's a challenging thing to do.
How much is it to join the society?
Oh, well, it's $25 for a membership.
That's
and
all.
Membership support is an important part of how we keep everything going.
Yes.
Bill was talking earlier about some of the other investment add-ons that community preservation brings.
Yeah.
And one of it is that it allows organizations like the Antiquarian Society, when we receive money from the Community Preservation Fund, that helps us go out and bring in additional funding that then can benefit the community.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when we first restored the Hedge House, for example,
It's beautiful.
that was, thank you, yes, and we've worked on that for some years, and there's several components, and we're still working on that property. It's a large property. We're still working on the landscaping part of it. But
I have a question.
Yes.
If someone has true antique, can they donate it to the house?
well, now, collections we're very particular about.
I'm sure.
Because we want things that represent the specifics of the history that we tell.
Yes.
So it has to be Plymouth,
Yep.
and ideally it would have some relationship to the family that lived in that dwelling. So but we love it when people bring us things and ask us, because we can, if it's not something that's pertinent to our collection, we can help them understand what it is. And one of the big things that we're into encouraging people to see as an invaluable resource right now are historical images. There are lots of folks in town that have incredible historical images, and we use this as a tool all the time in planning, in figuring out how to go about restoring a property, or a landscape, or a garden,
Yes.
or a fence, or
Yes.
whatever it might be. Is we want to see
Bring
these
it back to
these
what
images
original.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you have a document or an object or an image, and you're interested in having it looked at, have a conversation about that, we'd love to offer our
Just
expertise and advice.
call and they could come
Absolutely.
in and show you.
Yep.
And so the CPC has been instrumental, Bill.
I think what we learned from Donna in the historical community, that we can have a larger effect beyond just the restoring of the building. It's great to save the building from the wrecking ball. And a little bit about myself, I grew up in downtown Plymouth.
Right.
I spent my entire life down there, and I had seen so much over the years, the change of Plymouth and the loss of some of the history. Went on in school and studied history, and have always been interested in history and government, and to see the downtown and the condition that it was gravitating to, in seeing organizations like Donna come in and save and preserve these buildings, and teach us how the Community Preservation Act could be an economic impact to the area. But again, it became this tool of education. It was educating people about their community, their history, and
Take pride.
yeah, and now with this modern day technology with Facebook, we're seeing all in the information that's getting out there. People are coming back and posting photos of old Plymouth, and you find these rare photographs that are out there, but they are truly inspiring, because we do have a very unique village, and we're preparing for 2020, and anything we can do to support organizations like Donna's and others is a benefit to the town.
Well, I'll tell you, your green is also a gathering place.
Very much so.
We walk by and they're playing music on the grass, and nice little guitars and singing, and it's a wonderful camaraderie that's happening in your town. It makes it your hometown, and I'd hate to see that go away. I don't want it to go away. I don't want to become Pottersville.
Yeah.
Well, community preservation, I mean, the words are meaningful.
Yeah.
Yes.
This legislation has helped us preserve what makes these communities great places to live, and places that we can feel proud of. And I think every penny that's gone into that has provided a truly valuable investment for all of us in the long
How
run.
do you grow your membership? Do you?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
This is, the day-to-day kinds of things we need to think about.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we have found is that we have a lot of information about Plymouth history, and how can we best share that with as many people as possible? So there are the digital ways, the online ways, the website ways that are out there today. But I love that person-to-person contact. Not everybody wants to come and take a tour of a historic house. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, it's the best thing.
A lot of people love it,
Love
and we
it.
get people that specifically look for that experience. But some people, it might not be their cup of tea. How can we reach them? How can we get them involved? So we've started doing free public tours of Burial Hill. We've been doing them now for, this is our third year.
Yeah.
And we just do the first Saturday of every month, we do a tour of Burial Hill, because we see the hill really as a collection of stories about the people that are buried there. We have some of their objects, we have some of their papers, we have some of their houses, and we can tell you about these people and their lives, and it's fascinating. So we do that for free, and I tell you, it's been a wonderful way to introduce people to the organization, to what preservation is all about,
And
it's
that's
helped our
free?
membership grow. Yep, first Saturday of every month of every year from now till 2020, the Antiquarian Society will be offering a free public tour of Burial Hill at 1 o'clock. We'll have one coming up this Saturday.
That's wonderful.
And it's going to be The Trouble with Tribbles.
The Trouble with Tribbles.
If it's going to date me a little bit, The Trouble with Tribbles, but there was a stone carver, a Plymouthian named John Tribble, and many of the stones up on Burial Hill were produced by him. So we're going to find out what the trouble with the Tribbles is.
Oh, that's fabulous. Do you go on these, Bill?
I've been on one. I've been up to the Burial Hill
Yeah.
and gone on the tours. It's remarkable in terms of we live in this area. We travel through it. We stop at the lights. We pull
we
over.
look? Do we
pull
go?
over and get a gallon of milk, but we don't realize what happened all around us. And I think Donna's done a great job inspiring the committee to look at how we can utilize these funds in a way that maximizes its impact economically and historically. I think that it's great to preserve things, but when you're living within a fixed income and you have limited resources, to be able to partner with an entity that gives you the biggest bang for your buck, I think it's been great over the years. But there are other, there's other components of the statute that we have to, realize, and that is the component of affordable housing. It's a major issue in in the town of Plymouth.
That's because we're so big.
Yeah,
You know,
we've
10% of-
we've grown so much over the years
Yeah.
from a population of probably in 1970 of 18,000 to close to 67,000 now.
Yeah.
And one of the components of the statute allows us to improve the housing condition, and that's what we've done over the last 12 years. Initially, housing partner with the Plymouth Housing Authority and Joan Pimentel in building Cherry Hill 2.
Oh, sure. They
bring-
brought in a lot of money, didn't they,
They
Bill?
did. For the $2 million that was put up by the town of Plymouth through the Community Preservation Fund through town meeting, they brought in nearly close to $10 million.
See, people don't know that. They don't realize that.
Yeah, it was a $12 million project.
Yeah.
It expanded Cherry Hill's capability to allow seniors to live in downtown Plymouth, age in an area that's safe, and the ability of other organizations to step up to the plate. Connie Malhoris with the task force has done a great job dealing with a housing crisis on an emergency level, that during the winter months you have people that are in need of housing, and her organization have met that challenge, but they know that challenge can't stop there. And over the years we've worked with them. They get grants from the Father Bills program out of Quincy that allows them to bring in counselors and work with people from the emergency housing situation into temporary housing.
Right.
And we've worked on that with them. Over the years, we bought 366 Court Street and 368 Court Street.
The old Quintal house.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and they're self-sustainable themselves because of the store. Are they doing that?
Yeah, out back,
Yes.
they're currently renting to an organization,
Yep.
New Again.
Yep.
They're funded by the state. It's adults with developmental challenges
Sure.
that sell things at that location. So they have a nonprofit working on the site.
What kind of things, Bill?
Just kind of refurbishing different things and crafts
yes.
and things like that.
They had that on the North Shore. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a nice program.
Yeah.
They have a location. The organization, the task force, has an income. That income that comes in from the building is dedicated back to 368 Court Street and 366 Court Street and
That's
its care
right.
and its maintenance.
That's what the Symes House is going to be doing.
Yeah,
You
but
know.
it's a great thing. They have house managers there. They work with the clients, but eventually what they want to do is get them into traditional housing, transitioning them into the housing that they need to get back into, and that's what we're working on with them now. So hopefully, Connie has been in the task force for the homeless, has been working from an emergency level to a temporary level to a permanent level.
There, God bless her. That's not easy either. That's not easy.
And one of the other components of this is the open space component. And over the years, the Community Preservation Act has been able to preserve over 1,500 acres of land across the town of Plymouth.
Which is so important.
Yeah. So some of that land was, the Center Hill Preserve, and some of it was
Yes.
Hedges Pond and
Hedges Pond. I went down there.
Yeah, Hedges
Yeah.
Pond is a great one. That
Yeah.
was it's 38-acre Great Pond.
Yeah, it is.
And it was originally owned by the Episcopal Church.
Yep.
It was acquired by the town through the CPA Fund. It was renovated with CPA funding and town meeting support into a park. And the intention was to try to maintain the camping component. So the town runs a day camp there. It's a program. There's a waiting list
I
for
saw
it.
it.
It's successful. There's a revolving fund associated with that park now. The money that comes in from the day camp takes care of the park during all the maintenance and all the other needs of the park.
I'm looking at this list, and I voted on 99% of this, so it's all so familiar. The Jenny Gristmill Fish Ladder.
Right, that's
That
great.
is, when I first moved here, that's where I brought the children. And some people were trying to catch the fish with their hands. But Pilgrim Hall Museum,
Yeah.
Paul Revere Town Bell. The county farm, for crying out loud, that was
a great one.
terrific.
Yeah, that was slated. They were going to sell off the county farm.
Yep.
And Sam Bartlett and
Yes,
others.
I remember it. I went to the meeting with him.
Yeah, John Moran and Nathan
John
Withington.
Moran,
they
yes.
all got together and they formed the Friends of the County
Yes.
Farm. And there's a restriction on that farm now.
Yes,
And
it
it's
will
for
always
be your farm.
Yes. We need that. I am so happy to see farms come back.
Yeah.
See, I could have had a farm. My husband said no.
But you might not be doing this then.
Well,
you'd be out there farming.
No, but look at all the Talcott Harlow House.
Yeah,
You know, I sent my daughter there as a program in the summer when she was, I think, in the 4th or 5th grade, and you know, this
some
is
of the projects,
community.
yeah, some of the projects are really interesting. I always got a kick out of the Paul Revere bell.
Yeah,
And
I remember that.
The bell, and there was at the Stone Meeting House, First Parish Meeting House there in the town square. The town of Plymouth had acquired a bell. They actually have correspondence with Paul Revere, going back and forth between the
That's
selectmen,
fabulous.
requesting a bell.
I think Ken Tavares spoke about that many years ago because he wanted that bell.
Yeah.
He wanted that, and I'm glad we got it. Look at Eel River Preserve.
That was an interesting one because that was well over 100 acres of land that encumbered the headwaters of the Eel River.
So important.
It was an agricultural area. A bog was built on top of a spring that feeds the Eel River, that feeds Plymouth Harbor. It's the largest freshwater contributor to our harbor, and really maintains how clean it's going to be. So taking the cranberry industry out of it and retaining it back into what it was. Dave Gould with the Department of Marine Environmental Affairs did a great job restoring that. One of the largest water restoration projects in southeastern Massachusetts. They actually went in and removed the bog, rebuilt the river. They took old trees they took down from Hedges Pond and they put them in the river to create these eddies where trout might come back, and they planted all the trees.
That's what they're doing across from my house now, bringing it back to its original form. I took the bog out. It's going to be a teaching facility for colleges and school children, and I'm just so excited about it because it's going into conservation. And you know, I like going into the city too. I like seeing the tall buildings, but darn it, I love to come home. Kenny and I travel a lot. I love to see the green of home.
Yeah, Plymouth is unique. We sit in a pine barren, we sit in a pine barren, and we have one of the largest sole source aquifers underneath us. So any way we can preserve the open space preserves the health of the community, the real health. I mean, having fresh water and having wetlands that work are important.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this bill. I know it's not, you sit on committees, you're so busy. I think I've scheduled you 4 times and you finally got here. And Donna, it was a pure pleasure. I just love hearing you anytime you get up, and I know you do wonderful work, and please never leave us.
Oh, thank you, and I have to give kudos to Bill here because he's brought a lot of us together to work on these things together successfully.
Absolutely. And before we leave, I'd like to tell everyone that the next annual meeting for the Sims House is September 18th, 7 p.m. at the John Alden Club. And September 18th, I will keep this and keep saying this. So the next annual meeting for this, I'm going to say Symes House, is September 18th, 7 p.m. at the John Alden Club. Be there. It's very important, please, and I will remind you. This has been a pure pleasure. This hour went by. Look at the credits are going. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
And please don't ever stop.
Thank you for doing this program. It's an excellent program, and it's nice to